Greetings all, it is Max and we are back doing a thing. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some crypto news. I know a lot of people out there are not interested in crypto news. It's fine. Some people thinking about investing and some people may already be. This came out fairly recently about Russia's moving to essentially not make cryptocurrencies legal tender, but classifying cryptocurrencies as a type of currency. Currently in America and in most places, cryptocurrency blockchain assets are considered property like a house. That's really what they are considered. And that's how you can tax them. That's how you have capital gains and things like that, is because they're treated like a stock. Like you own a piece of a company with a stock. With cryptocurrency, it's like you own a piece of whatever that is. And that's largely for taxes, and how they can classify things. What countries are doing now, of course, you have El Salvador, which is has made it legal tender, as in you can go to the store and you can buy anything with Bitcoin. Completely legal tender. And the difference there between cryptocurrencies being a property and them being a currency that's a state authorized whatever, okay, is that they're not taxable if they're a currency. In America, at least, they're not taxable because if the currencies just aren't, right? If you make a swap at the bank you're going from dollars to Mexican pesos, or you're going to Canadian money or something else, based on whether or not the dollar is strong or the Canadian dollar is strong, whenever you make that transfer, there's no like tax if you make a gain, right? If the American dollar is really strong to the Canadian dollar or anything like that, there's no taxes on that. And there are people that actually make their money by trading leverage based on the strength of different currencies, right? And there's no taxes on that. That's not the way that crypto is right now in America. So what the importance is of this with, first of all, Russia's understands they really can't do anything about cryptocurrencies. So they're going to move in and kind of incorporate it into their economy. A couple of things with this, okay? 2 weeks ago, this is from February 9th. Is it from today? It is from today. So 2 weeks ago, the news on Sludge Report and most of the crypto channels and things was that Russia was going to ban crypto. Okay, this is how this game is played with cryptocurrency. Is everyone's trying to, when they want to put fear into the market, everybody is banning crypto. But then it comes out shortly after that actually no, they're going 180 degrees and getting into it. So what's with the fake news about them banning it? Well, it's so they can make the price go down so they can buy a bunch more at a lower price. Okay, that's what it is. It was actually quite surprising that China actually really did ban crypto. And that's because they fear that it's going to compete with the digital yuan that nobody wants to use. So they actually did. And that was kind of a shocker to the system, especially when China's economy was largely based around Bitcoin mining. They had like 50 or 60% or something of all the miners, and still like all of the Bitcoin mining machines that actually do the mining they come out of China. They come out of that area. So they banned Bitcoin, but they're still building all the miners. I know it was a really dumb decision on their part, but you hear about this with like Nigeria wants to ban it. India is going to ban crypto. Well, India did a 180 degrees too, and they're fully embracing crypto. It's like, it's just a bunch of shenanigans. And so we're going to take a look at this article, and then I'm going to give you my assessment on this as far as how you can benefit from this if you're getting involved in crypto, and why you maybe want to. And I'm honestly just going to say, because of this, just Bitcoin. And we'll get into that after I go through the article a little bit. So Russia's a major player. This is not like El Salvador. I think El Salvador's got 15 million people in it. Okay, this is Russia. It's the size of America. Regulators hope to bring the digital currency industry out of the shadows. Well, it's not in the shadows, but okay. Establishment of rules of crypto circulation would minimize the threat to Russia's financial system. Right. The Russian government and the country's central bank, the central bank. Now, all these guys are in cahoots. I was kind of looking and wondering about this is like, I assumed Russia had a Federal Reserve Bank like everybody else in the world does, right? And they do as of 1990. It's a private bank, private institution, but private banks and private central banks around the world don't really like cryptocurrency too much because they don't have any control over it. So it's odd that the one in Russia here is a little bit different. Maybe the government and the people have that much pull that they kind of had to. I'm not exactly sure. What I do know, though, is they print rubles out of thin air, just like we print dollars out of thin air, just like they print the digital yuan out of thin air. So being that cryptocurrencies are going to be considered a currency, like a government tender sort of a thing, that means that these federal banks then have to possess it, and they have to be able to buy it. I think that right now there's some kind of a law or some kind of a deal where banks can't really own Bitcoin. There are certain investment funds and certain things like that, but your local bank that you have a savings account at, I don't think they can own Bitcoin yet. They're all set up to do it. Last year or the year before, all of the banks are all set up because they all want to start wheeling and dealing in crypto, but there is some legislative block between a bank owning this particular type of property assets, kind of like a bank owning stocks or something, which breaks some kind of rules. But by turning it into, considering it a currency, now the banks have to possess it so that they can wheel and deal in it. Now the problem with that is you have an unlimited money printer that you can buy up limited resources such as Bitcoin. And if you get in before they start buying up all this stuff, you can make a fair amount of money, fair amount of wealth. Just going to point that out is like, yes, it's a good thing that countries are adopting this stuff. Yes, it's a good thing for, you know, the entire more freedom for people. You know, people can make some money. People can actually have wealth. You know, there's a lot of good to it, but there's some other things here. We understand they're not playing on the same ball field where you're out there, you dollar cost average and you put $100 into Bitcoin every month. Well, these guys will print up $5 or $6 trillion and just buy out everything. They'll buy out all the cryptocurrencies and then you just print up all the money. And some of these ones, they'll have a controlling vote, you know, proof of stake. They'll have a controlling vote in how these blockchains are run. Now, this is not going to happen with Bitcoin. Okay? It's impossible. It's too decentralized. But there are a lot of other cryptocurrencies out there that are vulnerable to this kind of thing, that just being kind of taken over by the state. So let's keep going here. The agreement is a significant reversal after the Bank of Russia last month proposed banning miners and several other crypto operations over concerns that they could endanger the country's financial system. That sounds like what every other central bank had said. News outlet Coinmarketcap first reported the announcement on Tuesday. It is understood cryptos are to be classified as an analog of currencies and not as a financial digital asset. Legislation will reportedly be drawn up no later than February 18th. So this comes out now on the 9th, so they have 9 days to draft legislation for how they're going to do this. Something tells me that this has already been drawn up for at least a year, right? You're going to write up, and I'm sure it's going to come out, and it's going to be a 15,000-page manuscript, manifesto of how crypto is going to work. But no later than February 18th. I mean, I guess we're going to see what happens on the 18th. Russia's regulation will seek to integrate a mechanism for the circulation of digital currencies into the country's financial system while ensuring control over the credit institution's cash flows. A rough translation of an accompanying draft reads: the establishment of rules for the circulation of cryptocurrencies and control measures will minimize the threat to the stability of the financial system and reduce the use of cryptocurrencies for illegal purposes, since a complete ban on the segment of operations related to their circulation is impossible. What they're talking about here as being impossible is Bitcoin. Maybe to a lesser extent Litecoin and some other coins that are built off the basic Bitcoin algorithm that are proof of work. But most of these other ones are centralized, Ethereum. You could totally regulate. You could Solana, a lot of these other ones. They could certainly block them. Crypto's use as a currency will only be possible for following proper identity checks via the country's banking system or licensed intermediaries. This is KYC. While operations exceeding 600,000 rubles or $8,016 must be declared according to the document. So in America, it was $10,000. Anything over $10,000, they start asking you questions. And now in America, it's anything over $600. And you get an IRS report filed on you. Anything over 600. And Russia is going to say 8,000. So we lowered the bar from 10,000 down to $600. And Russia went from 10,000 to 8,000. Man, just kind of one of those weird things. Transacting outside those proposed legal parameters will be considered a criminal offense. And fines are expected to be introduced for illegal acceptance of cryptos and means of payment. Now, this is kind of a problem. Oh, you can use it, but you can use it the way that we tell you to use it. Which, again, is impossible to regulate with Bitcoin and some of these other ones. At least it very much will be. Right now, there's a thing where you can track if Bitcoin had been through like a mixer to try and hide where the Bitcoin is coming from or this and that. You can search on the blockchain and kind of track where things are coming and going. But, hey, man, when in another couple of years, when Bitcoin has basically all been mined, this stuff's going to be changing hands so fast. No one's ever going to be able to track that. Not without expending a huge, tremendous amount of resources. Officials also said the regulation would ensure protections of citizens' rights under a licensing regime. They always love that regime. Aimed at cryptocurrency providers. Providers will need to have financial airbags in terms of liquidity and adequate capital. So this is the part where they're coming into just trying to jump and control all the on-ramps and off-ramps, which again, good luck because decentralized finance is here. People already use it. Okay. Just saying. The complete absence of regulation in this industry as well as the establishment of a ban will lead to an increase in the share of the shadow economy, an increase in fraud cases and destabilization of the country as a whole, the document reads. Yes, it will. And it will, if you're too oppressive with the way that you put your restrictions on people's stuff, if you're too oppressive with that, then people aren't going to use your stuff. I mean, just how it is. There are additional plans to introduce an obligation for market participants to educate Russia's citizens regarding the risks associated with digital assets. Several Russian regulators and lawmakers, including Ministry of Finance and Federal Security Service, Ministry of Affairs, blah, blah, blah. They're all involved in the decision-making process. Yeah. Okay. Implementation of a concept will ensure the creation of necessary regulatory framework and will bring the digital industry out of the shadows and create a possibility of legal business activities. Well, there's legal business activities already is there, even in Russia. There are several coins that are come out of Russian creators. Russians are really good with the computer hacking. I don't believe all the stuff, of course, about Russian hackers are involved in every problem America has, but Russians have a lot of really good hackers. There's a lot of hacking stuff comes out of Russia. And they have some pretty decent cryptocurrency projects out there too. And I think is at the end of the article. That is the end of the article. So what this effectively means is, see, right now Bitcoin is at $43,800. It's not a terrible place to buy, but my own personal beliefs are that without this news, right? Without this news coming out, my personal belief was that in March, they have a Federal Reserve and people are planning for a rate hike in the interest rates, lending interest rates. And I personally don't think that they're going to do it. And that's going to make everything kind of tank. Okay, it tanked last time. Everyone was expecting a rate hike from the Federal Reserve a couple of weeks ago. It didn't happen. The markets all tanked because that's an uncertainty, right? The people who are investors and these companies are trying to figure out what to do with their money. It's the first quarter, right? We want to get everything set up for the rest of the year, and there's no guidance given by the Federal Reserve as to what they're going to do for their rates for borrowing money. So everything kind of tanked, and now it's rebounding. But I think Bitcoin went down to like 33,000 was its hard bottom, right? So the new bottom is 33,000, and it kind of hung out in the mid 30s for a long time, and that was the perfect time to buy. Okay, you just snap it up, snap it up, snap it up. And now it's kind of gradually going up, and it's up into the low 40s. It's still not a bad time to buy, but I was thinking for sure, and come March, it'll probably go up and then drop back down briefly for like a week, probably back into the high 30s. But now with this news, I don't know. It depends on what they come out with on the 18th. Because if they have all their ducks in a row and they say immediately, we're going to start allowing banks and institutions to consider cryptos, probably only Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, Litecoin, as currency. All of these institutions, if they want to actually conduct business, which they will, in these different currencies, they have to go out and go buy them. Okay, if you want to conduct business in it, you have to go out and go buy these things. Now, why that's important is because when you have a limited resource, such as Bitcoin, and we'll go over to Coinmarketcap for anybody who wants to know all about different cryptocurrencies and how they're on the market. You go to coinmarketcap.com, and you have the information of how it's traded in 24 days, 7 days, 90 days. And the most important thing is circulating supply and the max supply. So as you can see here, Bitcoin's on number 1. The circulating supply is 18,953,000. The maximum supply is 21 million. Okay, so it's 90% out there, with a lot yet, with 10% left to be mined. And, the amount sitting on exchanges and stuff like that, the exchanges have to keep Bitcoin on their exchanges in order to do business and transact. So it's not like whatever is on the exchanges is actually there to buy. Now, what happens when Russia and all the Russian banks need to buy Bitcoin? Okay, what's going to happen to the price of Bitcoin? It's going to go through the roof. Because if you want to transact in a major way, in a major operation, you need like 100,000 Bitcoin. Okay, so like the exchanges, they have like, 100,000. Coinbase has like way more than that. But an exchange is going to have 50 to 100,000 Bitcoin so that they can transact. Binance and these CoinDesk, Crypto.com, Coinbase. They all have to have massive amounts of Bitcoin because they're transacting in millions of dollars, doing swaps between whatever sort of turd coin over here, and we're transferring it into Bitcoin, and it's a $5 million swap. Well, they have to have that Bitcoin there to do the swap. Okay. So if an entire country like Russia and all of their banks wants to transact like that, they all need to buy the stuff. And the Federal Reserve, their Federal Reserve, can print rubles out of thin air and go buy stuff, okay? Especially if they consider it a national security thing, then there's really no cap on the amount of money that they can take out for this. And as a response to that, other countries will follow suit, especially ones that are in the Soviet bloc that, kind of listen to Russia and kind of do what Russia is doing, right? Because they're all kind of neighboring brother, sister, family countries. So what I propose, if you're looking at investing, it's worth it to put a small amount here and on it right now. Even if it goes down in March, it ain't going to go down very far. It ain't going to go down very far. And honestly, if what happens is if they institute these changes and make it a currency and they do it fairly immediately in Russia, the price is going to go through the roof because they're going to have to buy a bunch. And I'm only talking about Bitcoin because what I'm saying really only applies to Bitcoin. A lot of these other things that people are invested in that they think are great projects, they have like 30 billion coins, right? And it's like, come on, 30 billion coins. Ridiculous. Why would you ever need to create a coin that has that many coins? And so a lot of them have no limit, right? There's no max supply on Ethereum, for instance. But what could also happen is in Russia is they say, you know, these are the things that we're proposing, and then we're going to give it a year to set up the infrastructure in order to actually regulate and control and set our special IRS up for crypto, right? And all that stuff takes time. And so they could do something like that where they say by 2025, we're going to roll in, you know, the cryptos as currency, which could happen. And then, of course, nothing changes. The market's just going to be up and down based on what the Federal Reserve, whether or not they're going to raise interest rates or not. So it's really hard to even know what's going to happen with it. But if they say full steam ahead and we're going to start getting, you know, we're going to start allowing crypto and taxing it a certain way, and we're going to do it in 2 months, then the price is going to skyrocket. That's the way that we sees it. And so just, you know, people out there that think, you know, they're going to ban cryptos and stuff like that in the world, it's like, well, some places might, but it ain't really going to matter. And as far as what America goes, they're never going to ban Bitcoin because they can't. And the Federal Reserve here, the chair of the Federal Reserve, says they're not going to go after Bitcoin. They're not going to go after Ethereum because they're sufficiently decentralized, so they say. The reality is Bitcoin, there's nothing they can do anything about. And Ethereum, they all own Ethereum. That's the reality of it. So they're not going to mess with those two. You don't have to worry about that. But now we've got Russia as the next major player. And the interesting thing about Russia is, you know, I think I did a video on this before. Russia has had sanctions on it where they can't use the SWIFT system. Everyone talks about sanctioning Iran and sanctions on Iraq and Syria and all these third world countries. Well, Russia's been sanctioned too. They got kicked off the SWIFT system, and Russia said they didn't care. And they were doing business in Bitcoin. Okay, so that's how they're getting their oil. So the old petrodollar ain't holding up so good when it comes to, you know, things like Bitcoin, where you even have like Russia who wants to start using it. And maybe that's what the play is that they just don't want to use the dollar anymore, and they want, the only way they can use Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency is to actually make it a currency, a legal currency. Could be. I don't know. With their inner political things going on, but the central bank is directly involved in it. So whatever it is, it's going to be something, you know, that's going to be probably a waste of time in the beginning. I don't know, highly oppressive when it first comes out, until they probably realize they can't do anything about it. And yeah, it's worthwhile at this point. You know, our central bank digital currencies, which are not the same thing as Bitcoin. Central bank digital currencies are going to be coming out within the next 2 years. Probably will take twice as long in America, but China's already got one. The crypto ruble is they're working on that to try and implement that as quick as they can, so countries can have their own digital version of their cash. And that's going to be a bad thing, and you're going to want to use something else if you cannot all help it. You know, even if you have to go through KYC and do all sorts of weird tax stuff just to transact in Bitcoin or some other sort of cryptocurrency, it's worth it to not be as tracked as you would be on the official digital scam coin dollar, digital track, or yuan or whatever. Yeah. So that's about what we have with that. As far as you can tell here in the markets, they're recovering. They went down about 40% after a pretty big sell-off over the Christmas time and into the new year. And that's just what was expected, more or less. Everyone thought that Bitcoin would go up to, you know, $100,000 or something. And once it became clear that it really wasn't, you started having a big sell-off before the end of the year, just to get your profits in, you know, before the end of the year. And that's how, when you have big business in there, that's just kind of how it is. Everyone has to take their profits. Everyone has to close out their accounts and finish up the books. And then in the New Year comes in, everyone figures out what the budget is and everyone puts their money back in. February is always a great month for crypto and the stock market. And the only hitch in that was the Federal Reserve not raising interest rates when the inflation rate is over 7% officially, which means that it's probably 3 times that in reality, you know. So them cryptos is going up. And, you know, like I said, if you're not familiar with the space, just buy Bitcoin. Because, look, in another couple of years, there ain't going to be any Bitcoin to buy. Okay, there just isn't going to be any Bitcoin to buy. And one of those things that's darn near a surefire gonna go up asset. To the point where when you have it, you'll never want to spend it because you'd be losing out on gains. And that's kind of the conundrum with people that operate in Bitcoin like I do, is that you can buy anything with Bitcoin because everybody wants your Bitcoin. But because everybody wants your Bitcoin, you probably shouldn't be using your Bitcoin to buy stuff. You should probably be using some other kind of junk coin to buy things. You probably use Dogecoin or use something else. You should take your Bitcoin and just hold on to it. And that's what I have with that. The news out of Russia. And yeah, we'll see what happens. February 18th. That's not too far off, huh? Another week and a little bit. All right, guys. With that, we're going to be out of here.